Hey, and welcome back to another video. So in this video, we'll be taking a look at the legendary Nokia N95 first generation and answering the question of whether this is still a usable phone here in 2021 with respect to its display, its design and build quality, its hardware and its software, and everything else you need to know in using an older phone like this here in 2021. Now, firstly, what I would like you to do is leave a like on this video so it basically helps get this video on YouTube's algorithm, and also leave a comment down below and let me know if you own one of these things back in the day or you still have your old N95, or whether you're considering actually getting one of these for collection purposes here in 2021, or with the fact that you're still here watching this video, if you want to know whether this phone is still usable in 2021, so let me know down below. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button at the end of this video if you liked what you saw, and ring that bell notification button to get notified whenever I upload a new video. I have some great communities on especially Discord and Instagram, so you can go ahead and follow me on Discord and Instagram as well. And I'm also trying to get active on Twitter, but I don't really have too many followers on Twitter, so it would help me quite a lot if you could follow me on Twitter so I can become more active there as well. Anyway, now let's jump right into this video. So to start things off, let's go over a bit of history on the Nokia N95. So it was announced in September of 2006 and released in March of 2007, and it shipped with the Symbian S60 platform 3rd edition, meaning version 9.2, and its initial main selling point was its two-way slide keyboard. Now the two-way slide keyboard, as you can see, the main keyboard is here down over here when you slide the screen up, but when you slide the screen down, you can see that it's a dual slider mechanism with multimedia controls up top. So that was one of the main selling points, and oh boy, did this thing sell well. This thing actually outsold the original iPhone, which shows that people were still banking on the Nokia branding in terms of trust, and they were also okay with a full keyboard phone like this instead of a touchscreen phone. So phones like this still had a place in the market, and much more even after the iPhone was initially launched. This thing initially shipped in silver and black, and later it also shipped in gold and purple as well. They said the gold and purple were limited quantities, but there's a lot of them online, so I don't really know why a lot of articles say the gold and purple were in limited quantities. The launch price of this thing was about $730 or 550 euros, so it was towards the more pricier side, and even 3 years after it was released, it was still selling for really high prices online in used and new condition. And in 2021 you can get one for about $30 in rough condition to up to even $500 in new condition. So there's no really a set price for this phone here in 2021, but I'd say $60 for a phone in decent condition is a good price. So this is still quite a sought after phone because of its collector's item status. So that is just a bit of history on the Nokia N95. So now let's talk about this phone's design and build quality, where there's actually a lot to talk about. So up here we have the front-facing camera, and what I assume is the light sensor, where back in the day light sensors could not be hidden under the glass and stuff, so they were out in the open, quite a visible light sensor there. We have the ear speaker and Nokia N95 branding as well. We have your basic controls over here, so you can still use the phone with the slider closed. When you slide it up like that, you have access to your keypad, and when you slide it down like that, you have access to your music controls over here. So this was one of the main features of the Nokia N95. It's dual slider mechanism, and you may think this is a very frail slider mechanism that broke very easily. Actually, I've almost never heard of the slider mechanism on this phone failing. This phone had other problems, however the slider mechanism was not one of those problems. So huge thumbs up to Nokia on designing the slider mechanism, something Sony should have learned, actually Sony Ericsson with the Xperia Play, because that phone had the worst slider mechanism I've ever seen. We have one speaker over here on this side and the 3.5mm headphone jack as well. We have our IR receiver, because this phone, as I remember, had a remote accessory that you could buy, and when it was on a music dock you could use the IR controls. We have our micro SD expansion slot over there, And at the bottom we have our charging port, so the thinner barrel charger. This I assume is the microphone hole, and over here we have a USB mini type B. If I keep mixing that up, USB mini type B, I think that is what it's called, and if I'm wrong I'll put it up here. Port over there. We have a lanyard strap hole over there, so you can put a lanyard over it or put it around your neck. We have a camera shutter button, multimedia button, and also the camera shutter button is half press to focus, full press to take a photo, so that's nice. Multimedia button, volume rockers, and another speaker over here as well. Up top we have our power button. Mine is missing the top cap of it, but that's expected at this age. And moving on to the back of the phone, we have the camera, which is shielded behind this lock mechanism. Now, I said there were failing points in this phone before, other than the slider mechanism, and yeah, this was one of the main issues with the original N95. This thing used to break quite often. Mine's still in one piece, but this thing used to break, and you couldn't use the camera at times because you couldn't launch the camera if this thing was closed. So, and if it thinks it's closed and even it's actually broke, well, if it's broken and it thinks it's closed but it's actually open, the camera mechanism will still not launch, and it was quite annoying. They fixed that with the 8GB version of this phone. However, we have a single LED flash over there, Nokia N-Series branding, and a place to press and pull the back cover off. So a very, very interesting design here with the Nokia N95. Still considered to be one of the most uniquely designed phones ever, and one of the most iconic phones ever. Whenever you think of a mobile phone, there's a chance that a Nokia N95 first gen will come to your head. So yeah, that's the design layout of the original Nokia N95 first generation. So now let us discuss the display on the Nokia N95 first gen, and I apologize if the screen starts flickering. That's just the refresh rate of the display conflicting with the frames per second of this video being recorded, and there's really no way to fix that. It happens at random, so I apologize for that in advance. So the display on this thing is a TFT display with 16 million colors. So usually TFT LCDs don't have 16 million colors. Usually TFTs have 256,000 colors. However, Nokia went the extra mile and included a TFT LCD with 16 million colors. So that's quite nice to see. There were phones even later into like 2012 that used TFT LCD technology that still had a 256,000 color palette, but this thing had 16 million colors, so that's nice. So the display on this thing, like I said, is a TFT LCD with 16 million colors. It's 2.6 inches with 240 by 320 pixels and a aspect ratio of 4:3, which overall gives it a pixel density of 154 pixels per inch. And this was easily the best slider phone display back in the day. This obviously was a higher end slider phone, probably the most expensive slider phone of its time, apart from Nokia's Virtu brand. Obviously, if they had slider phones, I cannot confirm. However, this was easily up there with all the premium phones, competing with the iPhone, of course. And for an N-Series phone, they actually went all out with the display. 16 million colors made it a very bright and vivid display for its time. And in 2021, the outdoor performance of this is actually phenomenal for a TFT LCD. It's bright, the colors are accurate. I mean, for their time, obviously, I'm talking with respect to their time. The colors are accurate, they're bright, they pop, and the outdoor performance is great. So overall, a pretty solid display, even for 2021, if you're okay with the 2.6 inch small size, because everyone is used to large displays now. However, I was perfectly fine with using this here in 2021, and I did enjoy my experience with it over the course of a week. So big thumbs up on the display in that aspect. It also has a predecessor to the modern always-on display where the LCD displays the date and time in a monochrome color with the backlight off that moves up and down the display at random. Looking under the hood of the Nokia N95 first generation, we can see that it's powered by a Texas Instruments OMAP 2420, which is a single-core ARM11 based processor clocked in at 332 megahertz. However, if you look at a lot of the spec sheets, you'll see that it says dual CPU Texas Instruments OMAP 2420. So what does that mean? Does it mean it's dual core? No, it's actually two of the same CPU, which is quite interesting. Now, some people I've seen saying that it kind of counts as dual core, but that's not the case. It's two separate processors of the same design. The world's first dual core smartphone is the LG Optimus 2X from 2011. So when the N95 first gen was released, the LG Optimus 2X was probably not even in the minds of its designers. So this thing predates that thing by a huge amount. However, this is not considered dual core. It's just dual CPU of the same processing power and everything else. So it's a single core CPU, just two of them. The graphics processor on this thing is very vaguely mentioned. It's a 3D graphics hardware accelerator, and I can assume it's probably Texas Instruments or something of the sort. I couldn't find any information about it online, but for such a small phone with a small display, I can imagine it does not really need that much processing power. This thing also has 160 megs of internal storage, which is also expandable by a micro SD-HC expansion slot for up to around 16 gigs. And it has 128 megs out of the box with a 128 megs expansion SD card as well, but I don't have that SD card anymore. I bought this phone secondhand. This thing also has 64 megs of RAM, so pretty basic specs for a slider phone back in the day. It did not need that much processing power, did not need that too much RAM to run what it had, but you could expand it up to around 16 gigs if you wanted to, and you had the 128 meg stick out of the box plus the 160 megs internal, which was more than enough for most people. But if you're a power user and you wanted to use all the multimedia features on this thing, I'd say 4 gigs to 12 gigs would be enough, but you could go all out with 16 gigs. So pretty decent specs for their time. They did the job well, and they do the job well even in 2021. As you can see, the OS runs just fine. The Symbian S60, the final update was release 3.1, so the hardware does fine here in 2021. In terms of software, the Nokia N95 first generation is running the Symbian OS 9.2 S60, and the final update was 3.1. This is not updated to 3.1, and I have to get around to updating it later. However, considering these servers and stuff are no longer available, I'll have to manually update it, and doing that without the licensing software and all that stuff that's completely outdated now is going to be somewhat of a nightmare. Anyway, you see the basic layout of the OS here, and I'll give you a tour of that. So we have our old school Nokia interface here. When you press this button over here, you go into the menu, and you have your the major layout here. This could be changed, obviously. The camera could be brought out, and camera is sitting in applications for some reason. By default, we have contacts, messaging, maps, video center, music, gallery, tools, web search, applications and download. Under applications, camera, you can actually move that to the main menu if you want. You can organize this the way you want. We have clock, calculator, calendar, media, games, shared online, office, app manager, and my Nokia. All the games on this phone have been erased when the previous owner wiped this phone, so the games are not working. And considering all the app signature issues that exist with this phone, it's hard to get games online and copy into this, because most of the time they're not gonna install because of the app signature issue. So I may get around that in the future, but I really don't have time to deal with all that right now. So we're not going to be demoing any games, because getting games onto this thing is kind of a headache with that issue. But as you can see, it's the good old Nokia Symbian interface, where everyone knows this, everyone has used it at some point, and everyone remembers it as well. It was one of the most popular operating systems back in the day. It's obviously no longer in existence, and it's only in the memories of some people and in the older phones that do exist today. We'll also be doing a web demo, a browser demo, because if you can get Wi-Fi running on this thing, the Wi-Fi will actually work. Mostly unprotected networks, but certain protected networks will also work on this. So you can get internet on this thing, and since it's 3G, a lot of SIM providers will also still work on this thing. I didn't go ahead and put my SIM in this. However, I used this off the Wi-Fi and was just perfectly fine. So now let's go ahead and demo the browser on the Nokia N95 first generation. We are now in the bookmark selection here, and there's a bunch of websites. Most of these don't work anymore, but I can imagine that CNN and Amazon Mobile will work. Let's try Amazon Mobile. I don't know if it will connect. It may have to change its URL. open as a secure connection. You have to select no, because sometimes when you connect secure connection, it kind of freaks out. Doesn't seem to want to load. Let's just try Google directly. So, oh boy, this is going to be fun. So I've already searched it. Let's search it again. Google. Let's type G again, and E. How do we do that? Is it this? Yep. So .com. This is bringing back a lot of memories. So let's go to that website. Let's see, it loads, obviously, Google's website. Let's just search for something basic as what? Cat. So cat. Where's the T? Okay, so we go there and we can search. So it's assisted search. The pointer is obviously assisted. So as you can see, the internet is working just fine on this. We can go to images. Images will also load. Let's actually try and download an image here. Let's click this. I remember using web browsers like this. Oh boy, this is bringing back a lot of memories. So, nope. Let's see if we can download this image. Oh, let's see this full-size image. Nope. Why isn't it opening? Open, cannot be seen. Let's try yes. See, when you hit yes, that's what happens. But when you click no, it does not want to load. So yeah, there is some issue there. So there's a few issues when it comes to browsers and stuff like that. But it is what it is. Here's an older search that I did for the same thing when I was testing it out, so we can go back to that. We have a bunch of information here. So as you can see, the browser does work on this thing somewhat. You can use it for basic stuff, but don't expect to do major things on the browser on the Nokia N95 first generation. We are now at my most favorite part about the Nokia N95, and which was one of its most selling, if not the biggest selling feature of the N95 over the iPhone and all the other phones at the time, and that is its camera, and which was probably the best camera in any smartphone at the time. But the camera on this thing is definitely something to talk about, and I want to apologize for the charger being here. That's because the battery on this phone is old and it dies pretty fast. So now let's open the shield here, the camera shield, and we can see the filter there opening. Let me do that again. Pull that down, and the filter opens because it's not that bright. That is a neutral density filter of some sort, as far as I know. So the camera on this thing is a 5 megapixel autofocus camera with Carl's Zeiss optics, and as you can see, it says 2.8. The 2.8 is the aperture, so 2.8 aperture with a 5.6 millimeter focal length. So 2.8 aperture, 5.6 millimeter focal length. It's an autofocus 5 megapixel camera. Like I said, Carl's Zeiss optics as well, and it has a single LED flash as well. It can record video at 480p at 30 FPS as well. The front camera on this thing, as you can see here, oops, we've opened the camera app, because when you open the shutter at the back, the camera app automatically launches. So the front camera on this thing is a QVGA video call camera, and unlike a lot of phones at the time, you could actually access the camera and take selfies with this thing. Because even later phones like the Nokia N9, you could not access the camera through the main camera app, which was kind of very annoying and wouldn't make sense as to why they didn't allow you to. And you could only access the camera through Skype and third-party apps. And here in 2021, when you can't access them through those apps, you're basically screwed, because you can't install third-party apps anymore because of the app signature issue. So it's nice to see that the N95's front camera can still be accessed with the main camera app, as you can see here. Let's access it, and I can also give you some camera samples from the front-facing camera. So this is the camera layout for the N95. Let me show you. This is the so we're in that setting. So we have the camera layout. So we have over here, we can switch to video mode. We have scene modes, we have flash, we have timer, we have sequence, and we have some RGB settings and color tones and stuff as well. Viewfinders, etc., etc. We can go into options. We can switch to secondary camera. We have settings over here as well where you have image quality, add to album, and all the other things you need to change. Capture tone cannot be turned off from here, and the only way to turn off the basically the artificial camera shutter sound is to change the profile to silent. So that's kind of annoying because I initially didn't have a SIM in there and the phone was on offline mode, but that's just a minor thing. And the interface on the N95's camera is really professional. Obviously an N-Series phone, at the time it had to be the best of the best, and the company just gave the user all the options that they would ever need to take the best photos they can with the given camera technology at the time. However, to simulate a basic user experience like I do with all my videos, I'll be setting everything to auto, and during the night I'll be setting everything to night mode, except when I'm doing video at night, because for some reason when you switch it to night mode on video at night, it switches the frames per second from 30 to like 10, so that's kind of bad. So I'll be setting it to auto during the nighttime videos to get a better balance of frames per second plus nighttime video. So now let's roll the camera samples from the Nokia N95 first generation. First some daytime camera samples, followed by some selfies taken from the front camera, then video samples, and the same for nighttime as well. So now let's roll the pictures and video from the N95's camera. So as you saw with those camera samples and video samples there, for its time, it takes some amazing photos and video. And actually some photos, to be honest, I'm just giving you my honest opinion, are really usable here in 2021, and you could easily mistake those photos for a lower end Android smartphone, or maybe even a higher lower end Android smartphone in like the 120 to 150 range. So this thing can still compete, even being over 12 years old at this point. 12, 14, it's almost 14 years now. So it's still a very capable camera when it comes to certain lighting conditions. Obviously the nighttime photography wasn't the greatest, but for its time, if you put yourself in the shoes of an owner for the time, it's an amazing camera. So that was the camera performance. Nothing surprising there. It's an N-Series camera. It was the best of the best at the time. Now let's do a speaker performance. And the speakers on these things, like I said, it has dual speakers. So dual speakers most of the time means stereo speakers, and that's true with the Nokia N95. It does indeed have stereo speakers. So let's go into general here and personalization, tones, and I can play you the good old Nokia theme. I cannot copy songs onto this thing, obviously, for copyright reasons, and I cannot access YouTube, obviously, with this old browser. So the next best thing is the tones. So let's play it by doing that. Max volume. Let's make sure we are on max volume, and yeah, it is on max volume. So let's try another one. Old times. But I guess everyone really wants to still hear the Nokia tune, so I'll leave it at that. So that was the speaker demo for the stereo speakers on the Nokia N95. Really loud, really clear speakers. I've actually played music off this thing, but obviously for copyright reasons, I cannot play it here. And it easily beats out certain mono speakers that I've seen on some mid-range phones here in 2021. For example, the Nokia C2 Tava or the Nokia 2 Vitella. As you can see here, I've done a review on this phone, which you can check up here in this video. This thing's speakers actually beat that thing's speakers by quite a large margin. So a almost 14-year-old phone beating a modern smartphone, that's kind of hard to imagine considering how far speaker technology has come. But the speakers on this thing are just amazing. So yeah, it's obviously a Nokia N-Series phone. You shouldn't actually be surprised by that. These were the best of the best at their time, and they still can compete to a certain extent here in 2021. Now let's move on to talking about the battery and performance in terms of battery life and stuff, the Nokia N95 first generation. So in terms of power in this thing, the battery life obviously of an N-Series Nokia phone, you should have expected it to be the best of the best again, and that's basically what you got. So let's first take a look at the battery on this thing by turning it off. This phone does not want to charge while it's on. For some reason, there's obviously something wrong with it at this age. But let's, well, sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't. But it's not doing it now. You may have seen the charging not working while I was doing that, even though the thing was plugged in. So the battery on this thing is a BL5F battery, good old Nokia BL5F battery, a common battery used in a lot of phones back in the day. It is a 950 milliamp hour battery, and it has a standby time of 220 hours on 2G and about 195 hours on 3G, and a talk time of around 6.5 hours on 2G and about 4 hours on 3G. So really good battery performance numbers over there. Obviously an N-Series phone from Nokia, they were focused on camera performance, battery performance. You really shouldn't be too surprised with amazing battery performance on even such an old phone. However, at this age, when the battery is weak, If you want to use one of these things, honestly, you'll have to get a new battery because these old batteries are slowly dying. So there are a lot of replica batteries that from actually decent manufacturers in China, you can get a replacement battery, and those batteries are actually quite good. I usually don't promote replica things, but the Nokia replica batteries that you could get back in the day and even today are kind of quite good. So if you really want to use this phone in 2021, you can go ahead and get a replica battery from China. They'll be decent. You won't get the best performance like you would have with an original Nokia battery, but still it's better than nothing. So finally, I'd like you to leave a comment down in the comment section below and let me know whether you actually owned one of these phones or its successor, the N95 8GB, back in the day, or you want to get one for collection purposes here in 2021, or to use one with basic functionality, because obviously, as you saw throughout this video, it really can't do too much in the way of browsing and stuff, but listening to music, making calls and stuff, if you still have a 3G network in your country, you can definitely use this phone. It'll be a great secondary phone. However, personally, I don't see how this could be a primary phone because it doesn't have major apps like WhatsApp and stuff. And getting apps onto this thing is a problem with the certificate error. So you're going to have to find a way to get those certificates signed if you want to load apps onto this thing. But it's a great secondary phone, honestly, if you like the nostalgia here in 2021. So let me know down in the comments if you're getting one, or you already have one or had one at some point. This is the end to this video, and if you honestly liked it, please hit that subscribe button down below and let me know any of your other thoughts down in the comment section below. Also leave a like on this video as it helps this video get on YouTube's algorithm. I'm on Instagram, Discord and Twitter, and you can follow me on those using the links down in the description below. Thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in my next video.